Well, good evening, T-Mug. And welcome to our Valentine's / President's Day edition of the Tucson Macintosh Users Group meeting. Is there anybody here who's here for the first time? Karen, are you a T-Mug veteran? Karen, if you're trying to speak, you are muted. But we're going to move ahead. I'd like to welcome everybody. Our regular members, our first-time guests, dual platform users, switchers, and everybody else. You need not be a member to attend, but some of the benefits of membership include free raffle tickets. Kurt will be taking attendance tonight and will fill out the raffle slips for each of the members. Next month is Super Raffle Month. Our next meeting will be on Tuesday, March 21st at this same virtual location. We will also have an Ask Me Anything session hosted by Kevin. It starts at 6 o'clock.
Same bet time and same bet channel.
Well, that's true, but it's going to be a little bit different next month because we have a special guest, Dan Wasink. I think that may be how you pronounce his name, of Dan's Tutorials, will join us for an in-depth look at the Apple Photos app. This special guest lives in the Eastern time zone. And so when he starts the meeting, it's going to be 10 o'clock his time. We're going to rearrange our meeting and welcome him right out of the gate, as it were. Be sure to get here early to get the best seat. We still have positions open for volunteers. We want to volunteer to send out membership renewal emails. I'm guessing that after you've done this once or twice, it's going to be like maybe 20 minutes a month. I'm sure that there's somebody out there who can give T-Mug 20 minutes a month. We'd also like a volunteer to check all the links on the tmug.com links page. Do they still work? Is there something else that we need to put on, things that we need to remove? Also, if there's someone out here who is conversant with Airtable database, we would like to work with you to try to get us to move over to Airtable database for our membership tracking. Keep an eye on the chat window for a link to our new online presenter review poll. I don't think Bob Doms has put it up there yet, but I'm sure that he will, and he will put it up again, and there it is. And he'll put it up again later on in the evening. What I would suggest that you do is click on it now, and it will open it up in your browser of choice. And then after the meeting, just fill it out. It will only take a couple of minutes. Please do that because it really helps us plan meetings for the future. Our new virtual raffle during the Zoom meetings, last month's winner was David Acklam. Congratulations, David. I see that you're over here down in the lower left-hand corner of my screen, and you can be a winner as well. All the names of tonight's attendees will be collated into a numerical list and used to pick a winner. Well, no, a winner, not a winter. And the same thing will happen for the super raffle, and the super raffle drawing will take place next month. It'll be in March. So that's just 1 month until the super raffle drawing. The Suffolk, England Mac user group meeting is tomorrow at 12:30 p.m. Arizona time, and the topic is Keynote. I posted the Zoom link to the T-Mug Talk Chat. Are there other announcements? What did I forget? Anybody? And I guess we're
Well, the
gonna
only thing that
go ahead, Kurt.
the reason we're talking about Airtable is that the membership database is now on FileMaker. And there's only a couple of us that still use FileMaker. And so if we can work with Airtable or something, then we can switch over from FileMaker to that. And that would be probably quite helpful. FileMaker is just out of control these days, price-wise.
Here, here. I'm the other one who uses it. Okay. For sales or wanted to buys, I have a item that is from a TMUG member. It is a 2010 MacBook Pro 17-inch. Thing's the size of a lunch tray. It is pretty old. It's slow, but if you have a need for one or know a youngster who could use it and so forth, I've been meaning to send an email to Melissa, who oftentimes can find homes for stuff, and to Tony, wondering if one of Karen's students might benefit from that. If either of you have the possibility of using a 2010 MacBook Pro, please let me know. If anybody else has a home for it, please let me know. I'm in the process of cleaning it and erasing the drive to DoD specifications and installing a new operating system on it. Okay, we're going to move into our regular part of the meeting tonight.
I have something for sale.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry about that, Bob. I have a friend that has a last revision 14-inch MacBook Pro with the M1 Max chip, 32 gigabytes of RAM, 4 terabytes of drive space. He paid almost $5,000 for the machine, and he's asking about $3,200. It still has AppleCare on it for another 20 months, and AppleCare is renewable on it after that. If anybody's interested, let me know.
Okay. That sounds like a good deal if you need that much horsepower and that much space. Okay, we're going to feature our regular tech update this month and a look at weather apps, our accessibility minute, and the Apple's January product announcements more in depth. We talked about it very briefly last month because it happened like the day of our meeting. Now we have a little bit of room, and Tony's going to give us a little more in depth about those product announcements. So if you are ready, Mr. Ridge, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. Here we go. These are the software updates from last time. We got these, Adobe was pretty active. And then if you're using the replacements for the Adobe software, Affinity Designer, Photo, and Publisher came out with an update. And if you're using Audio Hijack, it was updated. And VisiCal, BB Edit, Default Folder and Fetch, and Firefox for Mac had 3 ones. And Firefox for the iOS was also updated. And Graphic Converter, that's today. That 11.8 was mentioned today. And Google Chrome had a whole bunch of them for both Mac and the iOS. And LibreOffice, if you're using the Microsoft Office replacement, the free replacement, it's got updated. And Office itself got updated as well. Super duper if you're using that. So that update was posted today. And Quicken and Zoom are there at the bottom of the screen. And Apple had its share of updates, 3 for HomePod, if you're using a HomePod, and Logic Pro, their professional program, and Big Sur, Monterey, and Ventura all had updates. And iOS, iPad OS, the 16 version and the 12 and the 15 versions of those got updated. And Safari was up twice. And tvOS got 3, watchOS got 2. And now in beta and coming sometime will be another update for Ventura, which is now 13.2.1. Then iOS and iPad OS and tvOS and watchOS are all going to get updated along with Xcode if you're a programmer. And as far as the latest financial report from Apple that was affected by the international currency exchange rates, COVID, and inflation, their first quarter financial report revealed 117.2 billion revenue. And they declared a 23-cent per share dividend. And you can see from the pie chart there that iPhone had their biggest sales, portion of their sales. And they also announced a revised second generation HomePod speaker on January 18th that started shipping back on the 3rd of this month. And it comes in black or white colors. $300 each, of course. Now, as far as Apple and Watch, on February 13th, they had a car crash in Germany that was so far off of the road and 60 feet down in the bushes, it couldn't be seen from the roadway. But one passenger was wearing an Apple Watch whose crash detection feature activated and led the police, fire brigade, and 4 ambulances directly to the site so they could safely descend into the bushes and treat the occupants. That vehicle drove off through a strip of land over a mound of earth and was catapulted over the road's guardrail 60 feet below to the road surface out of the bushes that hid the car from view. And another Apple Watch episode, he was wearing a Watch 7, and when he woke up from a short nap during the day, he saw that there were 10 notifications of a high pulse rate and he didn't know about. So he called his doctor, and the doctor made this decision to call 911. He had a diagnosis of internal GI bleeding causing a loss of 5 pints of blood. And he had not had transfusion there, he would have passed away. And the later endoscopy diagnosis showed esophagitis, gastritis, duodentis, and he had hernia. So, and how about for the nostalgia? The Computer Museum, History Museum, held a 40th birthday celebration for the Lisa, the Apple Lisa, which you can see on the right-hand side. That's the computer that successfully introduced the graphical user interface to personal computing. And all of that technology led to the less expensive follow-on of the Apple Macintosh. And of course, without the Lisa, there wouldn't have been a Macintosh. And further, that original iPhone that we talked about a while back, still in its factory sealed original box, managed to fetch $63,000 at the auction that was held between February 2nd to February 19th. And that was, of course, a new sales record for that particular item. Rumors. Some of the online think that there's going to be a spring event next month. And some rumors that the Apple Watch that is out will be completely redesigned and overhauled in 2 years from now, 3 years from now. And then there's another rumor that the next MacBook Air is going to come in April with a large screen and an Apple M3 chip in it. And then they're talking about a 20.5-inch MacBook Pro with a foldable display rumored for 2025. And an updated 24-inch iMac this year with an M3 Apple Silicon coming. And how about Apple bringing out a new version of their 12-inch MacBook this year? All of these we'll have to wait and see, but these are the things that are online in the rumor status. And so thanks for your attention for this particular part of my presentation. And I still have these iron or pin-on Apple logos, and you can call me and I'll be glad to figure out a way to get one to you. And now we're going to go to the second part of my presentation, which has to do with items of security interest. Adobe had critical security updates for Photoshop, InDesign, Bridge, After Effects, and FrameMaker. And Google had a bunch of fixes for Chrome for Mac and Chrome for the iOS. And Firefox for Mac and iOS were updated with critical security flaws. And Microsoft updated Office for Mac, all of those versions up to 16.70. And Apple had updates for security reasons. Big Sur, Monterey, Ventura. And that to get to 13.2.1, you had, that's the total of 25 security fixes listed. And then the iOS iPad OS version 16 had 2 updates for a total of 15 updates, 15 fixes. And then the older iPad OS on iOS versions 12 and 15 had fixes as well. TV OS and Watch OS and Safari got all got security fixes. As far as cybersecurity goes, T-Mobile reported to U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission that they had a bad actor who abused an application programming interface to download data on roughly 37 million current postpaid and prepaid of their customer accounts. And they stole data, including customer names, addresses, emails, phone numbers, date of birth, and their T-Mobile account number. This is the 8th data breach that was reported by T-Mobile since 2018. So T-Mobile customers should fully expect to see maybe phishers taking advantage of public concern over that breach to impersonate the company and possibly even send messages that include the recipient's compromised account details to make the communications look more legitimate. The data stolen and exposed in this breach may also be used for identity theft. And another how about Google? Google's got have had more aggressive attempts to spread malware. If you're searching Google, using Google to search for Mac software, and what happens that hackers run ads that appear when you use Google to search for software, and their ads appear at the top of your search results and seem to provide what you're looking for. So when you click on the ad, a spoofed download page appears. And when you click on that, the download button there, malware is saved to your computer. The most common of which is known as Xloader, and that's been used to record keystrokes and steal personal data from both Windows and Mac OS machines. Google says they're trying to fix it, but in the meantime, it's recommended to confine your software searches and downloads to Apple's App Store or the developer's website. And they advise you ought to avoid websites that specialize in software downloads because hackers constantly target these sites. And that'll be it for today. So stay safe. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Ridge. Appreciate your help. You can, there you go. Okay. Next on the list is our weather presentation. And this is going to be partially me and partially some of our other members. What I did is I asked for people to write in, keep those cards and letters coming in, and send me a couple of screenshots of their favorite weather app, and we will feature them now. I'm going to start sharing my screen. Okay, you should be able to see my screen saying weather to weather. Everybody see that? Okay. We're talking about weather applications for Mac, iOS, and iPad OS. And this is from all of the people here in Tucson, Macintosh User Group.
Bob, we're seeing your whole desktop, not just Keynote.
Oh, okay. Let me stop sharing and reshare and see if we can just get Keynote.
There you go.
Okay, thank you. Okay, one of the reasons some of us come to Tucson is for the weather. Here's a Sonoran sunset, and I know that this is something that gave me a reason to move to Arizona. Not the main reason, but one of the reasons. And we come here because we think that the weather is always going to be either hot or warm and dry and lovely. Well, that's not quite always the case. In fact, we might have some more of that white stuff tomorrow, at least at the higher elevations. I think I saw something that said 8 to 16 inches in the mountains. And that's fine as long as I can look at them from here. But this, it's not what I signed up for. And here we have, thanks to the New Yorker magazine, here we have a little look into the inside of the meteorological headquarters. Do they really know what's going on? Does anybody really know what's going on? My iPhone weather app of choice currently is Carrot Weather. One of the things I like about Carrot Weather is that it was using Dark Skies data, and it's now using Apple's data because Apple bought Dark Sky, and Dark Sky is now gone. It is a free download, and it has in-app subscription. Going to take a look at a few screenshots from that. The ones that say Vail will be from my phone. The other ones are from the website for Carrot Weather. One of the things about Carrot Weather is you can change it. You can change the interface to be many different interfaces, and it also can be customized to make it just the way you want it to be. The other thing I like about Carrot Weather is it has an attitude. If you notice what it says right underneath 72 degrees, it says, make the most of this nice weather that I generated for you, or else. You can reset the attitude of Carrot Weather to a lot of different levels, or you can turn it off. I have mine set to snarky, but having politics turned off. As you would expect, it does have a night mode. Here's the what it's like in Paris, at least at the time this screenshot was taken. Thank goodness they use the Fahrenheit and not Celsius, because then I wouldn't understand it. Although I did learn recently that we know that zero Celsius is 32 degrees Fahrenheit. The other ones that are easy to know is 40 degrees below is both Fahrenheit and Celsius. 16 degrees Celsius is 61 degrees Fahrenheit. And 28 degrees Celsius is 82 degrees Fahrenheit. So that can give you some idea of where you're at when you see the Celsius weather. Now, here's what mine looks like. This is the way I have mine set up. And let's see. And what did Carrot have to say for this one? The supermassive black hole at the center of the Milky Way is billions of times more massive than your sun, but about on par with the mass of your mother. Here's another way to set it up if you like this view of the weather better. Here's another way to look at the weather. This is from Sydney, must be Australia, I would think. One of the things I like about Carrot Weather is the observations page. It tells you all of this information. And if you click on where it says temperature, it gives you what the temperature will be in the upcoming hours. And same for all of the other things, wind speed, wind gusts, UV index, which is important here in Arizona. And also you can set up different cities of interest to you. And here's the ones on my Carrot Weather app, including Woodstock, Illinois. I just heard this afternoon that there will be a MacStock late July of this year. More about that to come. They also have a Carrot Weather optional watch face. This one's a little busy for me. I don't use it, but it is there if you need to use it. And again, it's a little snarky. I hope you like sunburns. So Carrot Weather is a free download with annual subscription of $40 a year. $40 is a year is, to me, is pretty expensive. I may well I'll be looking at all the other ones coming up in this presentation and maybe trying to find something a little bit less expensive. Okay, the next one we're going to look at is AccuWeather. And this was a suggestion by Chris Wesselman. Chris, if you can pipe up and let us know what you like about AccuWeather and why it is one of your favorites, we're going to take a look at the screenshots that you sent.
Okay. I like the screen layouts. I like the real feel, which takes wind chill and stuff into account. Let me see what else on here. It's been my go-to for quite a long time. Much the same reasons you use Carrot Weather, but just with different. I also like the allergy outlook section. So yeah, let me just try to be in sync with what you're showing on the screen.
You tell me when you're done with this screenshot, and I'll move on to the next one.
Yeah, you can see the real feel in the middle, and it'll measure rain on there and stuff like that. So that's good. We can go to the next one. And I use the hourly quite a lot. Usually for early mornings, if I'm going to be somewhere for, maybe a photography outing, depending on the time of year, it might start at 7 or 8 or 9. Particularly in the summers, going to the Desert Museum, the big question is, when will it get to be too hot where we need to quit, which is usually around 10 o'clock. But you can check that out, and you can look ahead over the week and see if there's going to be a cooler day, which is very handy for me. And it shows precip So sort of an all-inclusive by hours. And as you scroll down, they've improved it so you can, it's a little bit easier to see what day you're on. Before it used to the day didn't stick at the top. But yeah, that's good for that one, Bob. And I'm not sure how they do indoor humidity, but maybe someone else knows that answer. They've got UV and all sorts of good stuff. Cloud cover can be very handy in terms of potential sunrise and sunset photos. I mean, all the usual information, you all can read that. So yeah, have we got any more?
Yes, we have your suggestion of the Apple Weather app. And let's get into that one. One of the things that's best about it is you already have it and it's free.
And it's got a nice big widget. Yep, which is, this is the screenshot of, exactly. And the fun thing is, a lot of this information is on the Apple Watch if you have the weather complications. And I realized the other day that I pick up my phone and I go through 3 or 4 clicks to get to screens like this, and I can get to them in 1 click on the watch. So if you use Apple Weather, make sure you have the complication on your watch and see all that's there. It's very useful. I'm not sure if I sent the watch screenshots, but probably didn't know how to do that then. But and once again, you know, if you click on it, it goes to the regular screen, which has kind of similar information. A little bit different layout. And it'll also show multiple cities. And which I don't know if I showed that or not. This is kind of fun for their dashboard. I think some of this might have come from Dark Sky. So.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Chris. We're going to move on to Tommy Friedman. And Tommy, I apologize where it says AccuWeather. I should have redone that to say Hello Weather. Hello Weather is your choice, Tommy, and it's available a free download with in-app purchases at the App Store. And we're going to show a screenshot or two that you sent in. Why do you like Hello Weather? Tommy, are you with us? I don't see Tommy in the list of participants. So we'll just take a look at his screenshot here. I think one of the things he said in his email is he really liked it for temperatures. And so this tells us what the temperature is going to be and the cloudiness for the next few days. So that, I think, is all of Hello Weather. And here's a screenshot that was on their website showing some different aspects of what will show up on your phone. Different, well, they're all Boston, and they're all cloudy at 47 degrees. Must be different times of day, I'm guessing. And it has a nice weather map. That's one of the things I really like, and none of us have mentioned it yet. I like seeing, you know, it shows me where I am and shows me the weather when it's coming in and hopefully going out. So that's available on Hello Weather as well. Our last participant in this game show here is Kurt with My Radar.
Last but not least.
Not at all. Free to download, has an in-app subscription.
I don't believe there is an in-app subscription. I think this is a free download, period, paragraph. These are screenshots from my iPad. It's bigger, so I'm looking at it there. But this is scrollable and you can zoom in and out to find whatever location you want to look at. This is Tucson. I'm the blue dot. The next screen, I just zoomed in closer. You can get down to the point where you can actually see the buildings on the U of A campus. It's their radar is really quite accurate. Next screen. No, the next one. Yeah, that one. Couple weeks ago, I think I was waiting for it to rain so I could get some screenshots. The trick with this is that this the clouds and so on, storms that you see going across are all animated, and it shows you the past hour of radar, so that you can actually look at something and say, oh, looks like it's going to be raining here in another hour from now or another half hour from now, whatever it is. You can see the white area of snow up on Mount Lemmon at the time, and it was heavier down in like Green Valley or something. So the point is that this thing is all animated, and that these clouds and so on, the weather moves, which I really like. And if you want more detail, as you can see on the top of this screen, you can pull down a window that will give you pretty much what all of us have been talking about. You've got humidity and temperature and wind and pressure, UV index, air quality, all that stuff that you can look at. Or flip that out of the way and just get the map. And the picture in the middle, what, 2-3 weeks ago, whatever it was, they kept talking about the atmospheric river that was tormenting California. So I zipped over and scrolled over and yes, here it was. And of course, with the animation, this thing actually was moving. You could see it rotate. So the radar on this is, I think, is really terrific. And it's not isolated only to the United States. I mean, I went to just see, for the hell of it, to see what the weather was like in London. And you can see the cloud cover and where the clouds are coming from, where they're going, and so on. So this is my sort of go-to app for weather. Any questions? I can try to answer them.
Okay, my question for everybody is, what is your favorite weather app? And or do you have any questions of us about the apps that you saw featured tonight? Roger, go ahead.
Well, I used to like, for radar, I used to like an app called Storm Radar, and it would give you the radar for about 5 hours. However, in the last couple of weeks, they limited that time span, that future cast, to about 2 hours. And if you want the 5 hour forecast that used to be free, you have to pay for the premium version. So that forced me to look for another way to do that. And I used the Channel 13 First Alert app. And that gives me a future radar for free for about 4 or 5 hours. You can see what's coming in. And today it was very active.
Melissa was next.
My question is, are there compatible Apple Watch apps for any or all of these apps? And
Most of them have Apple Watch apps.
I don't know about
Yeah.
my radar, but the other ones do.
Current weather gives me the option to have a Apple Watch screen, and it gives me notifications on my watch.
and is there a complication? Or is it just a watch face? What was the name of yours, Kurt?
My radar, and I just looked, and sure enough, it's on my watch. I've never looked at it on my watch, but here it is. So
And-
Yeah, and I have current weather on my watch,
Cool.
showing that
My
it's
radar.
48
that-
degrees.
The
it's true.
animation
It's worth
sounds
it's
really
worth a
cool.
try just to see what you think of it.
Yeah. And is there an Apple TV app version by any chance?
No
'Cause
idea.
that
I've
would be
never looked.
cool.
Unknown.
The other thing
that's your
about my
homework.
radar that I like a lot is that it has like 17 different overlays that you can choose, and you can turn them off or on. If you want to see the clouds, you can see that. You see temperature, you see rainfall. There's 17 different overlays that you can put on top of the map and choose whatever you want.
Yeah, my radar pretty much does the same thing. You can have just a plain old ordinary map with the storms moving across it, or the ones that I was showing is the actual topographic radar satellite view, whatever it is, and I prefer that one.
Kevin,
I-
did
Or
you-
do you use the free version or the paid version?
Me,
Yeah,
it is free. I don't know, I don't think it is paid.
Yeah, I think it's free.
You know, it says there are in-app purchases on
Oh,
my
does it?
radar.
Never felt the need.
Yeah, this
Well,
is,
if you
cannot-
don't know what you're missing, you don't miss it.
That's true.
does anybody use one for the Mac? I know I tried a few of them.
I have.
The one that comes with the software is lousy. Yeah.
There's one that comes with SetApp, which is halfway decent. And there was one called Storm Tracker Pro, I think I tried once. But it's too complex on the Mac, too expensive.
You
Okay,
cannot live in a place like I do and not use radar. The only time that I'm sure of what's going to happen is if I watch the radar, and I use the first alert of 13. And when I have traveled to California, it gave me a better result than any of the ones that I found people used in California.
I'm just checking the Mac App Store, and yes, there seems to be several weather applications. I just use the one on the phone. I don't use it on the Mac, but I do have weather in my title bar at the top of the screen. Not sure where that comes from. I think it might be from some service I subscribe to, either SetApp or something I subscribe to on the calendar.
Bob,
Anybody else?
I did have something all ready for you, but I have had COVID and I can barely talk to you right now.
Well, I'm glad that you're here and talking as much as you can. Anybody else?
Well, I just
David,
downloaded my radar.
David's got his hand up.
Yeah, Apple Weather is also on the Mac,
Okay,
and it does basically the same thing. And one of the things that wasn't pointed out is Apple Weather also has radar, air quality, and humidity maps that come up that are current. And they can have multiple locations, which Bob had pointed out, but the you got all those same features at your multiple locations.
okay. Mark Yarnish.
I used AccuWeather. AccuWeather's been around since the 70s. And I'm a Penn State alumni, so Joel Myers, who started AccuWeather, is a Penn Stater also. But recently I started using Dark Sky. I used it for a long time, and it was really accurate. I live out in the Bear Canyon, Tanque Verde area, and almost to the minute it would tell me it's going to rain in 30, 1 minute it'd start raining. But they just sold out, I think, or went out of business. And so I've been using the Apple app recently.
Mark Jaffe.
I also use AccuWeather. And for Kurt's benefit, I don't know if he's ever tried it. It does the animation of the radar for like the last 2 hours and the next 2 hour projection. And for Roger, I don't know if you've looked at it in any depth, but it does a next 4 hour projection of rain, snow, whatever, by the minute, like a little bar chart. And as you move it across, it gives a by minute, a bar of the rain or the snow and the intensity by changing colors of the bar for your area that you've picked, like Catalina Foothills. That's what I keep it on.
Okay, anybody else?
I use the
Roger.
Weather Channel.
Who was that? Hi,
Luis,
Luis, go ahead.
Yeah. I use the Weather Channel. I look at the today's weather, the hourly or 10-day weather. So I've been using that all the time.
Is that an app on your Mac?
I don't know, I did a search, the Weather Channel, and I've been stuck with that.
It's a
Okay, so
website.
that's on a website.
Yeah.
Okay, that
No,
works
it's,
too.
it's an app, the Weather Channel. I have that on mine too. I got 3 different ones, but
Yeah.
the Weather Channel is pretty good too. It gives you by the hour or by the day or rain predictions, and it has you reach scroll down often and get radar as well.
And Melissa is showing off her watch.
Where's Melissa?
I wanted to see if I could show it to you on the screen. This is what it looks like on the watch. And what I really like is when you scroll down, it gives you all of these details down here.
Is that the weather app that comes with it?
That's what it looks like. One of the things that I noticed though is it used to say weather.com, but now it says something else. It says weather data sources and breezometer. Has anybody ever heard of that? Breezometer?
I just saw it on my watch 2 seconds ago.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of that before, but it's a nice readout. I have it set to, like today, since it rained, I have it set to give me notifications on the phone, and it'll say like, rain is about to start or rain is about to end. So that's been
Good.
useful.
Roger. Unmute yourself, Roger.
I just downloaded My Radar, and they are saying they are now bringing space intelligence to the masses.
Good heavens.
So
So
they
that's
are sourcing.
SI as opposed to AI.
Yeah, I guess so.
I thought that was Sports Illustrated.
They are sourcing information from space as well as terrestrial radar, apparently. So thought that was interesting. They have a little video here that explains it if you want to check it out.
Okay. If that's it, then we're going to pass it along to Tony, who's going to give us somewhat more in depth about the announcements from Apple in the last month, which include Mac Minis, MacBooks, and even an HomePod. Tell us all about it, Tony. But unmute yourself first.
There we go. Okay, so I'm concentrated on the M2, but I can talk a little bit about the HomePod. So the M2 Pro and the M2 Max were announced. Last fall, they announced the M2 processors. So I tried to put this together as a little bit of a comparison. And what you can see is the M2 Pro is, an evolution of the M1 Pro, and the M2 Max is an evolution of the M1 Max. So the memory bandwidth across the family kind of stays the same as it did before. A big jump in the M2 Max is getting up to 96 gig of memory instead of 64 gig. So this is showing that they're realizing that, yes, a little more memory on those higher end machines is really useful. People are doing a lot of video editing and a lot of image editing that requires lots of memory. The other major improvement in the M2 Pro and the Max is they've now gone to a 12-core processor. So it's 8 performance cores, so the same number of performance cores, but 4 of the high efficiency cores. And this is helping now. They're getting a little bit more battery life with the M2 Pro because they have enough of those highly efficient processor cores to be able to do more of the processing. The other change between the Pro and the Max, so the previous generation had 16 or 32 cores. There are variants with fewer number of cores for those, but they essentially jumped up. So the M2 Pro has 19 cores now, and the higher end of the M2 Pros, and the M2 Max has 38 cores. It looks again like they did an exact doubling. So from 19 to 32, they essentially have 2 copies of the same graphics processing in the M2 Max. So this is the picture of the M2 Max on the lower right. You can see the memory chips are on the outside edge, and then the processor core in the center. So the first machine they announced was the M2 Mac Mini. And so they started off with, it's a base M2 processor, and the base M2 processor has 2 it's the one on the top of these 2 pictures. It has 2 Thunderbolt ports, and it supports 2 external displays, which is what you expect with an M2 processor. The M2 Pro version, which is on the bottom, has 4 Thunderbolt ports. It supports 3 external displays, and it will support an 8K display instead of the 4K or 6K. So it's the first 8K display support in the M2 processors. So they have upgraded the version of Wi-Fi to Wi-Fi version 6 with the extended band range. So that's the wider frequency band, which is a little bit less occupied, at least for the next few months until people start getting more Wi-Fi 6E devices. They've upgraded the version of Bluetooth, so it's a little bit faster, a little bit more power efficient. And in terms of performance, the M2 processor is somewhere around 30 to 50% faster than an M1. It has it has the extra cores, and it's just a little bit faster. The M2 Pro is about twice the speed of the existing M1, or about 50% faster than the M2 version. There are people who are comparing the M2 Pro to the Mac Studio. Now, the Mac Studio at the higher end definitely beats the M2 Pro, but the lower end Mac Studio is about at the same speed as the M2 Pro. So in terms of pricing, the M2 version of the Mac Mini is $599, and the M2 Pro version is $1299. So there is quite a jump in cost there. You know, $1299, that's getting up there pretty high, but the lowest end machine, $600 for this little M2 Mac Mini, which is probably more performance than we had with Intel cores by, you know, it's probably 200% faster than an Intel Mac Mini. Okay. The next thing they announced were the M2 Pro and M2 Max MacBook Pros. So these are the identical form factor as the M1 MacBook Pros. The processors, it's generally between 20 and 50% faster. So if you buy the same level of processor, somewhere between 20 to 50%, depending on what you're doing. In terms of graphics, it's about 30% faster than the previous generation. It has the Wi-Fi 6E support. It has the 8K display support because these are all pros and max processors. The M2 Pro, the 14-inch machine starts at $19.99. That's with 16 gig of memory and a 512 gig SSD. If you go to the Max, it starts at 3,000, but it doubles the memory to 32 gigabytes and 1 terabyte of flash for the hard drive. And the all-in price, getting 96 gig of memory and 8 terabytes of flash storage, $6,200 or $6,400. So I'm putting this in here mostly for reference. So Apple did create there's a 19-minute video where they intro the M2 Pro, the Max, the Mac Minis, and the MacBook Pros. And so if you want to watch that, it's 19 minutes. There's the link that's to the official Apple video on YouTube. I can talk a little bit. I guess if people have questions on that, I'd like to answer any questions people might have on the M2s first. And then I can talk a little bit about the HomePod.
I've heard a lot of people say that if you have an M1 that's working for you now, you really don't need to go to the M2. But if you have something earlier, it would be a wonderful jump up for you.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty clear from the 20 to 50% faster. So I have one of the M1 MacBook Pros, and I guess I haven't really been stressing it out that much. So it's really snappy, it's fast, it does everything. I don't know that a 20% or 50% faster processor would really help a lot. I haven't really been waiting for lots of things. If you're trying to drive lots of displays, having those more graphics units and a little bit faster graphics would probably help. So if you're trying to drive multiple huge displays, or if you want to drive an 8K display, which I'm still at the 5K LG display that I've had for a long time now. So yeah, I think if you have an M1 MacBook Pro, it's really not that huge unless you've been doing so much processing and graphics that you've found that you need more machine, right? And if you're a pro, it's probably paid for itself already within a year. Other questions?
So what do you know about the HomePod?
So the HomePod is very similar to the previous version in terms of exterior looks. I do know that they have upgraded, or I should say changed, the main processor to one of the watch style processors from the A series. So it's one of the watch modules instead of one of the phone processors. And they have also reduced the number of speakers by 1, is my recollection. And they essentially brought it back out. So it's the same as the original HomePod, except it's a newer, better variant. And I'm trying to remember, I think they lowered the price just a little bit.
The HomePod, the large HomePod 2 is $299, which is the HomePod 1 started at $350 and then went down to $300, and the HomePod large 2 is now started out at $300.
Yeah. And I have not had a chance to listen to one of the new HomePods live. So I don't know if anyone has one and has listened. Some people said that one fewer speaker was a little bit less quality than the original HomePod, and other people have said it really depends more on the room that it's in than anything else.
One thing to note that I heard is that we have the original HomePod, the HomePod Mini, and now the new HomePod, and you can stereo pair any of them, but only with like to like. You can't pair HomePod Mini and the new big HomePod or any other combination. So if you have a HomePod now and you're thinking about getting another one, that might be some consideration.
Yeah, I think the original HomePod had 7 tweeters and the new HomePod has 5 tweeters. And it also has fewer microphones, which a lot of people have said might be a blessing because the original HomePod was so sensitive that you could be at a far end of the house and it would hear you over your phone or your watch. So people were saying fewer microphones might be a good thing.
Any other questions for Tony? Then we're going to move on to our new regular feature, the Accessibility Minute with Chris Wesselman. And while Chris is getting ready, let's mention once again that in the chat there is a link to the new oh no, that's okay. Bob Damas put in a link to the Suffolk mug session that's on tomorrow at 12:30 Arizona time. And earlier in the chat, he has a link to the feedback form. And knowing Bob, I bet he'll put a new message for the feedback form once again in the, and there it is in the chat. So we're going to turn it over to Chris, who is going to give us our accessibility minute for February. But Chris will need to unmute his microphone.
There we go. I just unmuted. Okay, so I'm kind of competing with Bob in the chat here, but I put, these are kind of in the wrong order, but something I discovered, we're going to do a quick update on the assistive touch, that little magic home button I've talked about before. And I discovered that the assistive touch has a control center button, which is the second of the 2 graphics I just put in the chat. And we found out earlier in the Ask Me Anything segment that it is not there by default. So you'll have to go to your control center and click on edit to add it. And I've got a picture there. It's sort of the little accessibility icon in white. And when you click that, you will get the first screen that I put up, the graphic, and that shows my choices for the accessibility shortcuts menu. So sometimes this can be handy. As I was saying to Kevin, I've got this, kind of World War III case on my phone, and sometimes clicking the on-off button 3 times isn't practical. This is actually easier. The other thing that's a possibility is using our favorite voice assistant. You can say, hey, you know who, turn on assistive touch or turn off assistive touch, and it's instantaneous. It works really well. So, I mean, the blessing of this assistive touch button is it gives you lots of neat stuff like I've shown you before. But if you're doing photography on the phone, it may get in the way. And so that's when you want to turn it off, but being able to quickly turn it on and off is a really good thing. And then I posted a link from a good website called Apple Toolbox that shows, if you just open that link up, it'll show you how to actually set up the assistive touch button. And it's pretty good. You have to scroll about a page down where it says enable assistive touch on iPhone or iPad. And I'm going to kind of leave it there to keep it at a minute. However, if there are enough requests, we could always go through this in a future meeting. I mean, I think it looks like a lot, but if you follow it step by step, it's really not that much. And I use this all the time. I use it to restart my phone. I use it for, gosh, what all do I use it for? Screenshots. Makes it way easier than the button combinations. And also the shape to undo. And I've also actually got Apple Pay on here, although I don't use it that much. But yeah, it'll bring it right up. Again, because my on-off button is a little bit more difficult to click. So any questions on that? I'm kind of fast, but
Hey, Chris.
makes sense. Yeah.
I wanted to bring this up since you were talking about your button being difficult to press. And I have something similar. My button's a little hard. I have a military grade case on my phone. I have mine set to tap the back of my phone 3 times. I don't know if I can demonstrate or not. Yeah, see when I do that,
There you
it
go.
slides up. And that's under accommodations under touch. So that's under accessibility in the physical and motor section. And then there's a menu called touch. And if you scroll all the way down to the very bottom, it says back tap. And if you tap that, you can turn that on. And I have triple tap set because I used to have double tap set and it was engaging it by accident too many times. So I made it a little bit more difficult, but a little bit easier than maybe pressing the button 3 times. It just depends on your personal, your coordination. So for me personally, it's easier for me to tap the phone 3 times versus pressing the button 3 times. So that's something you might want to try to engage with that. And you can customize what shows up when you tap on the back of the phone.
That is a super suggestion. I set mine a couple of years ago to volume up and down and promptly forgot about it.
Aha.
But I know, and on the new phone, it works a lot better on the
Yeah.
14 than it did on the iPhone XR. But that's a great idea. So there are many paths to get to assistive touch. And as you'll see following that link, make yourself a nice fresh cup of coffee when you look at that, because there's a lot to look at in that link. But there are a lot of things that you can put in there. And like all of the accessibility features, there's really something in there for everybody. And I first started using these things, gosh, 10 years ago, whenever they first came out. I don't remember, maybe someone else does, when it first became available in the iPhone. But I was working with a lady at work who was actually a friend of she was the wife of the retired dean of the med school. It was a good friend of my dean. So I ended up working with her. And she had some physicality needs, and it was helpful. This part was the big success story. The big failure story, of course, was Siri, which we believed Apple marketing, and which of course was way off. But that's a whole nother conversation for another day. But anyway, thank you, Melissa. That's a great addition. The triple tap, you've got that, you've got Siri, you've got, gosh, what all, but anyway, there are multiple ways to turn that on and off. Any questions? If not, I think we can turn it back to you, Bob, but thanks, Melissa. That back tap, triple tap and double tap is a really great feature. And I think everybody could probably set that up for something, whatever,
Keep practicing.
Kurt, what were you saying? Because you were mute.
You're still muted, Kurt.
I didn't say anything.
You were saying something and you held your phone up?
Oh, Chris was asking if they have any questions. So I just held my phone and said, well, I've got, in a while I'll have some, but I'm gonna go have to play with this stuff.
Okay, that sounds like something that we need to revisit, Chris, in a future meeting. So let's, thank you very much, Chris, for putting that all together for us and even doing the impromptu stuff. I just got a notice in email saying that Tony has already posted the show notes to T-Mug Talk. So it's there, that's there for you. And is there any other questions on any topic before we close the meeting?
Well, Bob, one thing on accessibility, as we sort of overviewed with the help of Melissa and Kurt and Kevin, there's a lot to look at. And so if anybody has requests on areas that they'd like to look at first, I thought we could go through each area eventually. Maybe next month we want to go through this link I just put up, but to go through all of the motor ones or all of the vision ones or all of the sound ones or whatever. You know, this can very much be driven by whatever you guys are requesting.
Okay,
So
very good.
I think
let
it's
us know.
really important to do that too, because I've seen people get themselves into trouble by turning some of these things on and then going, what did I do? How do I make it stop? So be careful, play, but
That was me early on.
yeah.
It took me 3 days to figure out how to turn it off.
Right. Write down what you did before you do it, or take a screenshot of how it looked before you went monkeying around with it, and then take a screenshot after and maybe journal your experience so that you don't get really confused.
Especially if you use back tap to make a phone call.
Yeah.
You're in the car and your phone vibrates and suddenly you're calling somebody.
Right. With great power comes great responsibility. So be
I-
careful how you back tap.
I would suggest you don't back tap, set up back tap to call 911. It may happen then.
You could just
So-
land really hard and it would call 911.
Yeah, it does that for you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, just a reminder, next month we have a special guest, so our agenda is going to be considerably different than it is normally. And we will have, please come and join us for the Photos app demonstration by Dan Wasnick. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, since I've never spoken to him, mouth to ear. I don't know how he pronounces it, so I will probably brutalize it at least once. Hopefully I can get it better. So, and also to remind everyone again to please fill out the feedback form, and that is in your, that's in the chat that should be scrolling past you right now. And please be safe out there. And I do have one more weather-related thing. What I miss from the Milwaukee TV weather was Ward Allen and Albert. Albert was a puppet, an alley cat puppet, and he helped Ward Allen, the weatherman, present the weather on Channel 6 in Milwaukee. Don't think that he's still around doing that, but have a good month and come back and see us again on the same date next month. Funny how that happens between February and March.
Don't forget to save the chat.
Yeah, I'm going to save the chat right now, I think.
Me too.
There it is, save chat. Okay. I think
That'll
I've
be our
saved the chat.
T-Mug version of Don't Get Caught.
Yeah. Now, the question was always, where did I save it?
When you save it, it'll say reveal in Finder, but you got to click it really fast before it disappears.
Thank you. There it is. Okay. Good night, everybody. Drive
Good
safe
night.
on the way home. Stay out of the snowbanks and keep it between the ditches.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you, Tony.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Tony.
Rich.
Night.